Good morning. Thanks everyone for joining us here on our webinar or on Facebook Live. We're going to go ahead and get started as it is 10 o'clock. But we're just really glad that you guys have joined us here. This is our first JobNimbus 101 workshop webinar. We just really hope that you can come away from this with a better understanding of some of the topics that we cover. Definitely feel free to use the Q&A section here on the webinar. We love questions, would love to answer any questions that you have, and then we'll have a couple polls throughout that will give you an opportunity to ask some other questions. But we'll go ahead and move forward. So I am Sarah Ogden. I'm the Director of Support here at JobNimbus. I'm really happy to be here today, and I'm with two of my employees.
Hi, my name is Daniel Wilson. I'm super excited to be here with you this morning.
And I'm Logan, and I work with difficult things in support, and I'm here to hopefully answer some questions.
All right, so we'll go ahead and I'll pass it over to Dan.
So today here's a little snapshot of what we're going to be learning about today. We're going to talk about contacts and what those entail in JobNimbus and how to put everything you need in your contacts. We're going to learn about customizing some of your data by using custom fields. We'll teach you how to save time using templates, and we'll teach you about automations, which will really help you smooth out your operations, and because automations can be a great digital personal assistant. So first of all, what is a contact? In JobNimbus, you can have different types of contacts. You can add your customers as contacts. You can even add subcontractors, the people that work with you, to work with your customers, and also your suppliers, the people that you send your material orders to. So your contacts, and when you access your contacts page is kind of like a filing cabinet. And all of the contacts that you see in there are like folders. And each folder contains all these different files, which are like tabs. You can see in this little picture, we have the activity, jobs, tasks, documents, photos. Those are your tabs where you can access all the information in your contact. And we'll go through a lot of these tabs in detail. So first off, you'll see that at the very top of your contact file or your contact folder is this customer information panel. This panel shows all of the information that you entered when you created the contact. It will show anything from their name all the way to the team member that you assigned to that contact. And this panel will actually show up at the top of every single tab that you access from your contacts folder. That menu in the top right corner is extremely useful. You can do almost anything you need to do in your contact from that menu. I'd like to highlight a few things that show up in that menu. One is you can change your contact status. You can change them from a lead to contract signed. You can even edit the contact information, the details that show up in this panel. If you need to, there's an option to merge this contact with another contact. You can add a note that will show up in your activity tab, and we'll talk about notes a little bit later. But a really neat feature that I want to really highlight is the share feature. When you click on the share feature, a window will pop up. This share feature is a lot like a customer portal. You can send your contacts their information, and they can access that information from a web browser. So they'll receive a link, they click on it, and a window will pop up with the information that you chose to share. Now you can choose who you want to share this information with. You can choose to share it with just the specific contact, or you can choose to share it with a contact that you related to them. You can also choose what you share. You can choose to share all the attachments that you've uploaded to your contact, or you can choose very specific attachments. You can also choose to show related records from related contacts that you related to them. Right now, I'd like to talk about some other features in your customer information, your contact information. One is this little tags field right here. Tags are added when you create or edit a contact's information. They're super cool because they are easily searchable and can be used to report on. For example, here I have a 2020 tag. These tags are specific for your company. For my company, this could mean that I closed with this contact in 2020. Now, when I want to pull up a report for all the contacts I closed with in 2020, I can create a report and then add a filter for that specific tag, and it'll pull up all of the contacts that I closed in 2020. And it's just super easy to see that type of information, this customized information that you need to see. Now, another thing that I talked about earlier was related contacts. Related contacts are also added when you add in the contact's information or details. The related contact is really easy to share information between different contacts. You can share activity, you can share attachments, and you can see those records in both contacts. One example is if you want to relate a supplier to a contact, that way you can email a supplier from that contact and share information from that contact to the supplier. That is one of the things that a lot of our users use that related contacts section for. Now, at the top of most panels or most panes in each tab, you'll see this little related box in the panes toolbox, a toolbar. And this related checkbox is super easy, super simple, and super useful. If you want to see information related between different contacts, you can check that checkbox, and it'll show Daniel Bowman's information in Jane Tester's file. If you don't want to see Daniel Bowman's activity or attachments, just uncheck that related checkbox, and you'll only see what is in Jane Tester's folder. There are other options, other functions in your toolbar, such as this filter. This filter function will filter out records, and it is at the top of most toolbars. You won't see it in the financials tab. Now, the toolbar can be used to filter out specific types or categories. For example, in the task tab, you can filter to only see specific task categories, such as an appointment. You can filter out all the phone calls, all the tasks, and just see appointments in the tasks pane. An extremely helpful use for this is in the activities tab. You can filter for specific types of activities, such as activity that you made or the user created activity versus activity that the system made due to automations. Another function is the search function. This search function will filter search for very specific records using keywords. For example, in the specific team member's name, and that will pull up all the notes made by that team member or all the notes that team member was mentioned in. Right here is the activity pane, and you can see that there's a whole bunch of activity here. There's user created, and there's also system created activity. As I mentioned, it will also show notes and emails in this activity. All the notes that you added to that contacts folder will show up in the activity file under this pane. And notes can be created by clicking on that Add Note button in the top right corner. Notes are the bread and butter for communication within your company in JobNimbus. You can create notes for internal use, and those are actual notes, or you can create notes for external communication, and those are emails. To change a note between emails and notes, select the note, the type drop down, and you can choose between different types of notes. There are other things in this window are really nifty, such as this private note function. If you want to mark the note as private, click on that checkbox, and only team members with the private notes permissions in your access profile settings will be able to see that. That can be super useful when creating private notes for managers or admins that you don't want everyone in your company seeing. If you want to notify a very specific team member of the note, then you can use the @mention function. Just type the @ symbol, and a drop down of your team members will show up. You can click on that team member's name to notify them. And as soon as you click on create note, that team member, as long as they have updated their notification preferences in their My Info, that team member will receive an email or a notification saying that they just had a note mentioned for them in that contacts folder. And then they can go to that contact and read the note and respond to it. It's a great way to internally communicate with your team members, especially if you're working far apart from each other and you can't yell across the room telling them to look at the folder. Now the tasks tab contains all of the tasks for that specific contact. You can see all of the tasks that you make in the calendar feature or even on your dashboard, but sometimes it's helpful to just look at the tasks that you assigned to that contact, and you can see that in the tasks tab. The tasks are categorized by different types. You can there's task, phone call, meeting, appointment, and you can even make custom task categories in your settings. You can use the financials tab to keep all of your financial documents organized. That's everything from estimates all the way to payments. You can create your estimates, your invoices right here in this tab, and it'll keep them organized in their specific panes. Now, a lot of our users wonder if they should be using contacts, jobs, or work orders. We've created this flowchart here for you to help you decide. If your focus is mostly residential work, use your contacts. But if your focus is 30% or more property management or commercial, use jobs. You can enable jobs and work orders in your settings under the features tab. And if you need to even separate your work by trades or types of work, such as roofing and siding, you can use work orders to help you separate those types of work. Now we have a poll. Sarah, would you mind explaining that?
Yeah, so we have a couple different polls that we'll be giving throughout the presentation. And the first one should be appearing on your screens now. We just like to ask a couple questions so that we can target, the things that we're saying to specifically your needs. And then it's also just to help us get a good idea of, where our customers are at and, what we can do to help.
All right. When you're taking a look at that, let's start talking about custom fields. Daniel went over a whole lot of different information that is stored within JobNimbus, and it's a lot, but it's probably not everything that you need for your business, because each business is unique and has unique needs. And because we want JobNimbus to be able to fill the needs of your company, we've given you the ability to create new different fields to store information. like you can see on the left-hand side of the screen here, that'll be stored in a column between the contact information and the workflow information at the top of each page. So different businesses have different needs. And if you are an insurance business, then your information is going to be much different than what you might need in, for instance, a storm repair or a maintenance business. So these are some examples of things that you might use a custom field for: to schedule follow-up dates, to keep records of the insurance numbers, or to keep estimated profit. Sorry, slight technical difficulties. All right, there we go. All right, so you can add a custom field by going into your settings and going to the Contact Fields tab. There's also a tab for workflow fields or work order fields or job fields if you happen to get those. Then in the corner, you can see that there's an Add Field button. Clicking that is going to bring up your menu for adding custom fields. Now, there's 6 different kinds of fields that you can add. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory. I assume you know what a date is, and I don't mean to the movies. Not that you could go to the movies right now if you wanted to. But some need a little bit more explanation. For example, probably not many people know what a Boolean is. That's a computer term that basically means something true or false. What it's going to do, it's going to give you a checkbox for yes or no. So, is this a thing? Yes, click it. If not, don't click it. No. Another important thing you can add to your contact fields is the option to make these required. This isn't something that you can do with any of our built-in fields, but if you are, for instance, an insurance industry, you'd be really unhappy to not have insurance information. And so you can mark that checkbox and say, yeah, whoever's filling this out needs to add this before the contact can go into the system. I'm sure none of you have ever had problems with missing data, but if you did, this would be a good solution. Options lists are a little bit different than the others, because once you add an option list, then you have to put in all the different options. This is going to give you a drop-down menu on your contact where you can choose between the different things that you enter here. You can see I've already entered option 1 and 2, and I'm in the process of adding option 3. I just have to click on that box in the bottom that says Add New. This is really good if you have different suppliers that you might want to mark, or different insurance companies that you're working with, or maybe a different storm that these people might have been affected by. And you can add up to 30 options, so go wild. Now, once you've added these fields, these are going to show up on the right-hand side of the contact creation area, right after tags. Once you've got these, it's nice to, be able to take a look at them. But what's more important about custom fields is that they're reportable. In other words, you can go into our custom reports and you can pull up these custom fields either to add a column and make it part of your report, like display name, number, and type is at the bottom here, or you can add them as a filter. For example, if I have a date field that I want to look for, I can say, all right, show me all of the date fields between this area. Or if I have a currency field, I want to know all my jobs that have an estimated profit of more than $1,000. And I could add a filter that way. So this way you can choose the information that matters to you, and then you can also find it and manipulate it inside the system to keep track of your business. Does anybody have any questions about contacts or custom fields? All right, I'm going to take that as a no.
So let's move on to templates. So templates are a great way to create uniform documents to send to your contacts. If you plan to send, oh yeah, here is we have a poll for you. I forgot about the poll. Our poll is just to kind of grab some information from you to learn more about if you have challenges with templates. So if you have any challenges with them, or if you've never used them before, please let us know. That helps us know how we can better serve you as a customer support. So I'll give you a moment to fill that out and let us know if you're having challenges. Please let us know. So as I was saying, templates are a great way to create uniform documents to send to your contacts. If you plan to send out the same type of email to more than one contact, create a template for that email. If you plan to send a contract to multiple contacts, even if the contract has a little bit of a different information, such as a price or a name, use a template. You can still personalize the template to your contacts. You can even use templates to customize the design of your financial documents, such as your estimates and your invoices. You can access your templates by going to your the templates by selecting templates from the left side menu, and then you'll see all of the templates that you've created and all the templates that are available to you here in this page. You can add you can see that the templates they're broken up in different types. As I mentioned before, there are documents and emails. That's one type of template. And then there are your financial templates. You can, to create a template, click on the Add Template button in the top right corner of this page, and you can select all the different types of templates for you to create. So we're going to go into detail about these two different styles of templates, documents and emails, and your financial documents. And we'll talk about different uses for those templates and kind of help you understand what you can do with them. So this right here is the toolbar for your documents and emails. When you pull up the document and email template builder, you'll see that there's a toolbar at the very top, and then right under it is this huge text box where you can add in all of the content for your document or email. But I'd like to focus more on the toolbar. And I'd like to point out some really cool features in this toolbar, such as the image button. If you want to insert a photo, you can click on the image button and then browse your computer for a file. An example for this is if you're creating from a specific sales rep that will go out to all of your contacts. You can, if you want to include an image of that sales rep, you can click on that image button, browse your computer for an image for your sales rep, and put it in the email. And that'll kind of help personalize it from your sales rep's sales rep to your contact. So that way they can see your sales rep's face and become more familiar with them. Another thing you can do is use this table button. If you need to organize your content in a very specific manner, you can use the table button to add a table. Now, there are two different ways that you can create a table. You can use those squares that just popped up and choose how many rows and how many columns you need in your table, or you can choose to use the table wizard. In the table wizard, you have a lot more customizability to create your tables. You can type in the exact number of columns and rows that you need. You can even specify the width and the height of the table. If you're specifying the width, we recommend a width no larger than 700 pixels. If you understand HTML coding, cell padding, cell spacing, and these other options will be very helpful in customizing your table. even further. Another option that you have is to add template fields. Now, these template fields will really help customize and personalize your documents for your contacts. The template fields can be found in the bottom left of the toolbar, and you can insert these fields wherever you want in your document or your email, and these fields will pull directly from your contacts folders and files. For example, you can type in your template hello and then use a custom field of display name, and it'll show up in the email or document as hello Jane Tester. Or if you are sending it to Daniel Bowman, it'll say hello Daniel Bowman. This is especially useful for automation. You want that automation to send out emails for you, and we'll go over automations in a little bit. So I want to cover some information that some of these different sections in this template field dropdown. You have company location. Company location will pull from your company info in your settings. So if you want to include your company name, then you can pull that company name from your company info. As I said before, you can pull contact information, and that's in these the contact sections. You have contact workflow, contact others, and even contact custom fields. As Logan went over custom fields earlier, you can insert the information you enter into those custom fields into your email or your document. Your task section will pull information from your tasks that are related to that contact or associated with that contact. Now, the built-in section, which is at the very top, I saved the coolest for the last. It has the signature and the estimates fields. The signature field will insert a section in the document for your contact to sign. Now, they can use it to sign electronically, or you can print it out, and it's laid out very simple, very organized for them to sign their name and date it. The estimates field can be used to insert an estimate into the document of that contract. Insert an estimate, a very specific estimate that the contract is related to. You can add the estimates field to the end of your document, the end of your contract, and then when you're creating the document, choose which estimate you want to add to that document. And then those two documents will be combined into one, and you can send it out to your contact. There's another option that will appear in the drop-down menu that I actually want to cover right now, and that is template questions. Template questions, in order for you to see template questions, you'll first need to enable it in your features section in settings. So once it's enabled, you'll see this option in the left side menu pop up. You can click on it to add lists of questions that you can choose from to add to your documents. Now, template questions can only be added to documents, document templates. And these questions need to be answered by you when you create the document. We'll kind of go over different types of questions you can add in a little bit. But the answers that you add in to answer those questions that you make will be inserted into your document wherever you put that template field. Much like the other fields, you can put them wherever you want in your document. So to create a template list, you'll first need to click on the Add Template Question at the top right of this panel, and then name your template question. For example, I have home information, repair information. Once you have named the list, you can then add questions by clicking on the three dots to the right of that list and selecting Manage Questions from the drop-down menu. This will bring up the questions window. This questions window contains the list of questions that you have added to that question list name. To add a question, just simply click on the Add Question button, and this will bring up the Add Question window. You can then type out your questions, such as I have, in what year was the home built? There are different answer types that you can use, and these are a lot like the custom fields. You have decimal, a number, and this number will only show up as a whole number. You have a text. You can use a string of text, numbers and symbols in your answer. And you also have the Boolean logic, which, as Logan explained, is a checkbox that will answer yes or no. And it'll actually put the answer yes or no on your document, depending on if the checkbox is checked or unchecked. After you create your questions, you can then, they'll then pop up, the list will then pop up in the drop-down menu in your template fields drop-down. And you can choose which question or which answer you want to show up in your document template. Now, these questions will be answered when you create the document. So it creates an extra step when creating the document, but it's fairly straightforward. When you create the document, I added these questions into a design template of contract. When I choose that design template when creating a document, I have these list of this form pop up with these questions, which I can then answer, and those answers will populate in the document. I actually have an example here for you. Here's an example of how template fields and template questions work in a document. I have bolded and highlighted in red all the template fields and answers for the template questions. As you can see, I used the contact's display name. I used the company name field, and then I answered all of those template questions from above. It's fairly simple what I created. I know that companies will need something a bit more extravagant or a bit more in depth, but I just created this for very simplistic use. As you also see, I included the built-in signature field. Now let's move on to look at the financial template builder. For the example that I'm going to be using for the financial template builder, we'll be looking at the estimate. They all look the same: estimate, invoice, all your financial documents. When you create the template, will look the same here. You'll see they're kind of split into two parts. The top part contains the data visibility options. These options will kind of turn off and on certain features in the document. And you see how they're split up into internal and customer. The internal is what your team members will see. The customer is what your contacts will see. For example, if you don't want your contacts to see the sales rep info, you can uncheck that box. And now internally, your team members will see the sales rep info, but your contacts will not see that info. If you don't want your team members or your contacts to see the cost column, which this cost column is the cost of the products or services that you are using in your project to your company. It's not the price is what you sell those products and services at, and the cost is what they cost to your company. If you don't want your team members or your contacts to see that info, just uncheck the checkbox and it'll no longer show up on your template, your design template. At the bottom of this top section is the Save Template button. Now this Save Template button, when you click it, it saves all of the changes that you make to your template, both in the top section and in the bottom section. So let's look at the bottom section here. I've split the bottom section into two parts. You have the top part of the bottom section, and then right under this, it shows how your list items will look. It shows that price column, that cost column, all the list items, all the sections. And then underneath that is kind of the bottom section of the bottom section, the bottom part of the bottom section. So you'll see that there are a whole bunch of editable text fields here. You have the header, company info, sales rep info, customer info, and the above items. Each of these you can click to edit. And when you click on them, a small window will pop up for you to edit what's in there. And this window looks a lot like the document template builder. Another, and these fields right here help you customize what information is displayed on your estimate for your contacts. If you want to customize what information is in the customer info, if you don't want them to see, if you don't need to have their full address, or if you want to add in a phone number, you can do that. Now, another thing that you see up here is I have the JobNimbus logo. Now, this logo will actually populate from what you have in your company info section in your settings. So when you upload your own personal company logo, it will populate on all of your financial documents. You don't have to worry about that. JobNimbus has already taken care of it. It will take that information from your company info and put it right there in your financial document, so the estimate is from you. Now, below the line items in the sections is there are more editable fields. A lot of our users use this section, such as the left of tools or even the footer, to add in terms and conditions, kind of like a contract. And that I've seen that happen a lot, and I think it's really useful and really cool way to use it. So real quick, before we move on, I'd actually like to open this up. If anyone has any questions about templates, please feel free to ask them, and we'll answer them. So if anyone has any questions, or if you have any questions about contacts or custom fields from before that you didn't think of at the moment, feel free to ask them. We're here to help. Sarah, do you see any questions?
I know one of the most frequently asked questions that we get, and you can answer this as short or as long as you want, Dan, but is what is the difference between a design template and a saved estimate template?
Yes, that is an excellent question. When you create templates, when you create your financial documents in the contact information or in the contact folder, you'll see that there is an option to save that estimate, and that will be saved as a saved estimate template. Now, that can be confusing when you see design template and saved estimate template. Design templates, you design here in your templates tab in settings. You design the look of the template, and you can even name these. You can create multiple designs for specific jobs. If your roofing work looks different from your siding work and you want those estimates to look different, you can create different designs for them. Now, the saved estimate template saves all of the line items. So when you're adding an estimate and you're adding all of the different line items for the products and the services that you're using, you can then, after you add all those line items, you can then save that estimate as a saved estimate template. Next time that you need to use that exact same estimate, let's say you do the same type of roofing job over and over and over again, you don't have to rebuild that estimate. You can go to the saved estimate templates, select the roofing estimate from the saved estimates, and then all of your line items for that specific project pop up in the estimate, and you don't have to worry about it. It's all there. It saves you so much time, so you don't have to recreate the same estimate over and over and over again. So yeah, that is a question that we get a lot, and that I can see how it can be confusing, but it is super useful to have both the design template and the saved estimate template. Are there any other questions?
Not at this time, but definitely
Awesome.
anyone that has any, feel free to put them in chat or in the Q&A section. We definitely are here to answer any questions that you have, but we'll go ahead and keep going.
Nice. So we'll move on, and it is poll time. Sarah, would you mind taking it away?
Yep, so this is a poll about automations, which is the last topic that we're going to cover today. I'm not sure if many of you have automations that you use, but definitely, you know, if you can mark what kind of automations you would like to use, then we can make sure that we go over those as we're talking about them.
All right, so let's go back. So templates are an amazing way to save yourself time by not typing out the same thing over and over and over again. JobNimbus can go even further in giving you options to save time. This is one of the coolest and it's one of the most advanced areas of JobNimbus. Our automations are effectively small computer programs that you get to build. And by small, I mean very small. It's a simple if-then statement. And it's made out of 3 parts that we're going to go over in just a minute. It's made out of a trigger, a condition, and an action. All right. We will cover each of those and talk about how we can do it. All right, so if you're going to add your automations, first you're going to have to head into your settings, go to the Automations tab, surprise, surprise, and click on the Add Rule button. Individual automations are called rules, but I'm going to refer to them interchangeably here. Now there are 2 kinds of trigger types in JobNimbus. The trigger type is what's going to make this happen. The first is event-based. In other words, when a thing happens, do a thing. The second type is time-based. And that says instead of when a thing happens, do a thing, but so long before or so long after a thing happens, then do a thing. Your contacts, or your conditions, excuse me, are the if part of the if-then sentence. So in this case, we're saying if blank is equal to blank, then blank is going to happen. An important thing to note here is that little checkbox that says only if type is modified. Now that means that the action that carries out the automation has to change that from what it was to something new. In this case, we probably wouldn't want it marked for type because type is your workflow and you're usually not going to change your workflow. But if we're doing something like status, then we're absolutely going to use that. These are some of the different options that you'll see in order to start making your condition. Type is the workflow. Status is your status in the workflow. The rest are pretty self-explanatory. You'll probably notice that you don't have some of these in your system, like insurance company or gate code. That's because these are custom fields, like we talked about earlier, that you can add in and use them to create automations. Then you have the option to make it equal to or not equal to, or completed or not completed. So we're going to say, if the type is this, do it, or if the type is not this, do it. And lastly, you have the triggering record type. So in this case, we're going to choose which workflow is going to trigger this or which status is going to trigger this if we're using status, which honestly is one of the more common types that we'll use. So we've got our trigger and we've got our condition. Now we're going to add an action. Today we're going to cover tasks and emails. So one of the things you can do is create a task. The task works a lot like the other tasks that you build in the system manually, but these can happen automatically. You want to pay special attention to the task name because all of the tasks created by the automation will have that name. You want to pay special attention to the start date. You can set this to happen immediately. So as soon as this is triggered, hey, this task is due. Or you can set it to be due several days from now. The assignee will still get a notice like they do with all tasks, but they won't have to do it right away. And lastly, you'll want to pay attention to that assigned to field. Now you'll be able to choose here to assign to the sales rep or the assignees of the contact that created this, or you can choose a particular person. Like if Joan is your office manager, then you can assign it to Joan and Joan will always get this task. And lastly, that check mark at the bottom for maintain related contacts, that means that this task will populate under the contact or job that spawned this in the first place. You'll generally just want to leave that clicked. The second action that we're going to cover is sending an email. Now, this is another place you're going to use those excellent templates that Daniel told you about. So you can choose an email template. In fact, you'll need to. You can add the subject and then the recipients. This can be members of your team, the assignees, the related contacts, or even just the contact themselves. So if I was sending a ready for estimate template, I'd probably send that to my sales rep. But if I wanted to say, hey, you've signed a document, we're ready to work with you, I would want to send that to my contact. All right, so we're about to move on to actually putting some of this in practice. But before we do we have any questions about building these automations? All right, let's move on. Now, each of these that I've chosen are going to implement a different cool little twist on the formula. The first one is making a status task list. So usually when you get to a step in your workflow, there are things that need to happen before you move on to the next part of your workflow. For instance, if I get to materials ordered in my rules, then I need to get a permit. I need to get the materials. Maybe I need to order a dumpster. And so that's what this is for. This is an event-based trigger, so it's going to happen right away. And it's going to happen when a contact is modified, so when something's happened to change it. The condition is that the status is now equal to materials ordered. You can see that it says modified in parentheses there. That means that it's changed to materials ordered. That's the modified checkbox we discussed earlier. You'll see the require all conditions to be true or require any conditions to be true. In this case, we only have one condition, not a big deal. But if we had two conditions, like I want the status to be equal to materials ordered and I want the type to be equal to residential customer, then I would mark all conditions to be true. Or if I want to put this in, if the status is equal to materials ordered, or if the status is equal to permit needed, then I would use those two conditions and require any. So this is an and, it has to be materials ordered and residential, or it's an or, it can be materials ordered or permit needed. And then we've got two actions. You are allowed to add basically as many actions as you want. So in this case, we have two tasks that need to be done. I can assign them to different people and create them entirely independently, like we discussed earlier. I could have 10 different things here. And maybe the last one I made would be materials ordered completed. And we'll jump into that in a little bit. Now, the next thing we're going to go over is a time-based automation. And this is to send an appointment reminder to the customer. So the trigger type is time-based. I'm sending this a day before the start date of the task. The condition is that the task type is an appointment. Makes sense, right? We don't want to send this if the task type is email or anything. And the action is to send an appointment reminder email. That would be a template that you created earlier. In this case, I'm sending it right to the customer. I might also choose to send it to my sales rep if they have a habit of missing things. I'm sure nobody's ever missed a meeting. That doesn't happen. So that is creating something before the time. This, creating a follow-up task, is creating something after the time. So you handle a lot of different leads. You handle a lot of different customers inside your business. And I'm sure it's never happened to any of you, but occasionally people slip through the cracks. So we can create a task to remind you, hey, we haven't touched this in a while. Maybe we want to do something about it. So this automation is going to run a week after the last time the status changed. And it's going to happen with a condition, either if the status was a lead or the status was inspection. And you'll notice I marked that as any condition needs to be true. So they need to be a lead or an inspection and have sat there for a week without being touched. If I marked it as all conditions to be true, it would never trigger because you can't be both a lead and an inspection. And our action is to create a task lead follow-up, which I'm definitely assigning my sales rep, but maybe I'll also assign myself to it if I just want to know what's been going on. The last thing we're going to look at here as far as our recipes is changing the status of the contact. And this is based on a task being completed. So remember earlier I said I could create like 10 different automation, 10 different tasks, and the last one would be materials orders completed. Well, this is where I could make that pay off. So if completed is equal to true, and that's been changed, and if the task type is equal to automation triggering, that wasn't very imaginative of me, but I think you can choose specific task types that will mean something to your business, and you can add these in the settings. Then our action is to change the status of the contact that the task was under from wherever we were to in progress. So we've gone over a few different types of automations, and maybe you're starting to see something really cool here. These are if-then sentences. If this, then do this. But we can actually expand this and get JobNimbus to do even more work for you. We call this waterfalling automations. So for instance, here's a few things that we could do. We could have a automation that when you move into a status creates a task, like we showed earlier. Then completing one of those tasks moves the contact into the next status. And when that happens, you send an email to the customer. So for instance, okay, we finished ordering our materials and we marked off those tasks. That's going to move it to in progress. And then we're sending an email to the customer that says, hey, we're ready to start working on your project. And maybe we're also adding a task that is to the sales rep or to our production team saying, hey, we need to set up the time to make this project happen. That way, nothing's getting left out. This is another example. You could set up an appointment, and when that appointment is created, it would automatically send an email to the people involved saying, hey, you've got an appointment set up here. Then when you've completed the appointment, it gives you a new task. All right, you've completed the estimate appointment. Now we need to get them to sign it. And when we mark, yep, they've accepted the estimate as a task, that's going to move them into our next status, which would be possibly materials ordered, which would feed back up to the top. The goal is to get JobNimbus to do as much for you as possible and have to touch it as little as possible yourself. So we've gone over some cool things today that hopefully will give you some guidance into how you can use JobNimbus to make your life a lot easier, especially when it's so hard to get out in the field and do things right now. Does anyone have any questions on any of the things we covered? We'll be happy to talk about it.
I know one of the most frequent questions that we get is, why is my automation triggering multiple times?
Okay, so remember that modified box that we talked about? That is really important to set in order to keep your automation from triggering over and over again. Because every time you do something in the system, JobNimbus checks and says, hey, does this fulfill any of the tasks that we've got for automations? And if I have a automation where the condition is just the status is equal to materials ordered, and it's not set to specifically when that was modified, then every action I take, it's going to look and say, yep, the status is materials ordered. Let's do this thing again. So making sure that you're using that box correctly is very important. Another question that sometimes comes up with automations is that people would like to make an infinite loop with them. So whenever a task is completed, it creates the same task over again. That's not currently a thing you could do, but we could probably find a clever way to do almost the same thing. All right, Sarah, if you'd like, I'll pass it over to you to wrap up the meeting.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Logan. Oh, we actually just had a question from Eric. Why are we seeing activity for multiple jobs in a single job?
That is a great question. That is related to what Daniel was talking about all the way back at the beginning, about how you can see related information if that related box is clicked. If you have multiple jobs that are under a single contact, then all of those jobs are technically related to each other through the contact. So if the related box in the toolbar at the top of your activity feed is clicked, or the top of your attachments feed or so forth, then you're going to see all of the information for those different jobs under each job. So manage that related checkbox and that should go away.
Yeah, and one simple way to see if there is, if that information is related is when that checkbox is checked, a new column will show up in your activities with that says related, and it'll say a name, and then in parentheses it'll say related next to it. And that's a super easy way to see what activity that job is related to, or what job that activity is related to.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for asking that, Eric. Definitely, if you guys have any other last minute questions, feel free to answer those or ask those. But we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about our knowledge base. So as a support team, we do have a knowledge base at support.jobnimbus.com. We definitely recommend that you go there and look for answers in the question or in the articles that are featured on the website. But if you have questions that you're not able to find the answer to, definitely reach out to support@jobnimbus.com. We're here to help. We are here to make sure that you are using JobNimbus in the best way that you can, and definitely want to answer any questions, technical or otherwise, that you have. And then if you are not currently a JobNimbus user, definitely reach out to support@jobnimbus.com if you have any questions about the software, or you can feel free to reach out to sales@jobnimbus.com or click on this link when you get the copy of the slide deck. And then you'll be able to schedule a demo with our wonderful sales team, and they'll be able to help you out. But definitely thanks for joining us today. We, as I said, our goal is to just help answer any questions that you have and be able to provide you with resources to run your business in the most effective way that you can.
All right, everybody take care out there.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yep, stay safe.
Bye.